Hi everybody, Nathan Hensley here with another video about mortgage and refinance and questions along those lines to answer for you. I know it's been a couple of weeks. I know you've missed me. Admit it, you can. But I have been working on a topic and it's probably going to be broken up into a couple of videos, and working through it and coming through the conclusions that I needed to took me a couple of weeks to work through. So that's why it's been a couple of weeks since I sent something. So really what I'm going to be talking about today is the old debate between going into debt versus not going into debt. Now, a couple of things before I dive deep into this is, first of all, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial planner. I'm just one loan officer at one branch of one bank with his own 2 cents. And after watching this, your 2 cents ends up not being like my 2 cents, I won't be offended. But feel free to comment about what I'm talking about and share this video along to see if I have anything worthwhile to anybody you might know. So with that being said, let me dive in. For the longest time, I think this topic has been pulled back and forth, debt versus no debt, and it's been lacking a couple of dimensions. And so what I wanted to do was add those dimensions to at least my thinking so you'd know what was going on. So really it's debt versus no debt. That's the tug of war. I don't think that's the right tug of war to be pulling on. I think what people need to look at is how debt works in relation to two other factors. So if you have debt, you also have what value you're using the debt to buy, versus how much you're having to spend, namely in cash flow, to get where you need to get. Let me give you a couple of examples here. Let's say food, for example. Food has a value, okay? You go to the grocery store, you buy a bag of groceries, a cart full of groceries for $100, and then you consume it, you eat it, and the value goes down to 0. Now, generally speaking, you don't go into debt by taking out a loan for groceries, and you don't really worry about cash flow and it adding how much more you need to make to get that bag of groceries. So that's how food works in this example. It has value, but you don't go into debt and you don't have to worry about cash flow on it. Let me give you a different example, a second example here. Namely, that of a car. Now, cars generally don't go down to 0. They do have some leftover value. But with that being said, most of the time, or a lot of times, you have to borrow the money to get that car. So just for example, let's say the car you're buying is $2,000, $20,000. and you take out a loan for 18 for 5 years. Now, to keep the math simple, you divide 18,000 into 60 months, 5 years, and you get $300 a month in a car payment. Now, on top of the car payment, you probably have to insure the thing. If that's $600 a year, that's going to be another $50 a month. Just write insurance. And then you obviously have to put gas in the car, otherwise why buy the car? And that can be $50 a week sometimes. Let's just say $200 a month. So we've got car payment, insurance, gas, and then you're going to have to maintain the car. Oil changes, tire changes, new brake pads, tune-ups, all that kind of stuff. That could be 50, that's 200, and that could be another $100 a month easy. For maintenance. All told, 300, 350, 550, 650. So before you've driven this or made one iota of cash from it, it's costing you $650 a month. Total. Which means that you have to create $651 per month of cash flow to make it worthwhile. Now, the great thing about cars, well, great is a stretch of the term, they never actually quite go down to zero value. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the car you buy after 5 years of payments is left with a value of $4,000. That $18,000 though is now down to $0. $0. So you owe nothing, you paid for the car. But what that means is this. You've paid $18,000 in debt for the loan for the car. On top of that, you've made another, let's see here, check my notes here, $21,000 in insurance and maintenance cost over those 5 years. Together, you've paid $39,000 for a car that's now only worth $4,000, which means to break even, you would have to have made at least $7,000 a year for 5 years. Now, what that breaks down to is this. You'd have to make $3.39 an hour more by owning the car than you would have if you hadn't owned the car. It's not too doable, too out of the ordinary, but that's kind of a messy way of seeing how I'm working on all this. Now, with that being said, let me move on to kind of the heart of the discussion, namely how this would all play out with buying a house. So let me start with a clean slate here. And I'm going to go through this and make it as full as possible here. So we're going to go back to start with our value access here. Okay. And with a house, most likely you're getting a mortgage. So I'm going to call that red and call that mortgage. And then to pay that mortgage, you're going to have to make monthly payments on this. Now, I'm going to throw out a lot of numbers here. I've already done the math. I will go into more detail probably in my second part and maybe a third part at this point. So just let me go with the numbers here and I'll run it out for you. So for starters, let's say you're buying a $100,000 house in Indiana for 30 years, $30-year mortgage at 3.25%. Okay, another disclaimer. This is an example. Don't come to me and say, but you said if I did a $100,000 house, my interest rate would be 3.25. There's so much that goes into an interest rate and a mortgage that it would take a completely different video. Of course, I've made several videos along those lines, so check out those other ones. That being said, when you add up all the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, plus your PMI, we'll get to that in a second. That's what you're looking at having to pay. So let's say you buy a $100,000 house. And you take out a loan for $96,500. Now, your first question is, why is there a discrepancy? Well, that's because with FHA loans, they require you to put down a minimum of 3.5%. And 3.5% on a $100,000 home is $3,500. So what that means is you instantly have equity in the house of $3.5 thousand. So you're in debt, 96.5 plus 35K equals 100,000. Now, you're paying interest on it, on this 96.5 at 3.5% for 30 years. Once you add in your taxes, your principal and interest, taxes, insurance, plus your PMI. And the PMI is what you pay because you didn't put 20% down to start the mortgage. Your principal and interest and all these taxes together would be right around $590 per month. So your payment down here is you have to pay $590 per month. When you multiply that by 12 months, that gives you, pardon me, a total payment of $7,080 per year. With me so far? All right, so this equity, this $3,500 equity, that's what makes things interesting. Because what happens with this $7,080 a year payment is that roughly $1,900 gets added to the equity. So instead of, you start with 3.5, and by the end of the first year, you have roughly $5,400 in equity. So you've paid $1,900 of principal, give or take. So now you own $5,400, and your balance has gone down, your loan balance has gone down to roughly $94,600. See? So you've paid almost $71,000, and $1,900 of it goes straight back into your house. Kind of like blasting a rocket off the ground. Now, here's something to keep in mind. And I've talked about the CaseShiller Index before, but I went back and did the math and did all the research, and it looks like approximately for the last 30 years, home values have gone up 4.23% per year on average. What that means is, you know how at the beginning of the year you had $3,500 in equity and it was a $100,000 home? At the end of the year, your home is now worth $1,230 on average. So it's gone up $4,230 in value. Where does that value go? That value goes straight back to the bottom line and gets added to this $5,400 that you now own. So that 4,230 added together now gives you an equity of $9,630. See how that works? So you pay 7, you get 19, but then the house goes up in value 4%, and that $4,000 gets added to your equity as well. So now you have over $9,600 in equity. I know I threw a lot of numbers at you here, and there's a lot to talk about, and I'll go into more depth in my next video. But I think that's enough for today. That's a good part 1. If you have any questions, feel free to call me or text me at the number, or place a comment to this video. And if it's giving you something to think about, or you think this will help somebody out, feel free to like and subscribe and to share this video. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.